the story begins to unfold in the Supreme Courtroom. The main characters, while he is in chains, presented accusations that he insulted the Holy Son of the Holy Earth. Jianyu immediately began to make excuses and tried to prove old cartilage that he is not guilty. But this was of no interest to anyone. The guy was told to know his place, and then they began to put the sentence into effect. And after that, the main character tore out his own, the supreme bone, because this is exactly what the judges wanted. I did not expect such a performance from the prisoner. No one in the room. Jianyu held out his glowing insides to the man and said that in 3 years they will pay for what they did. Today, already after this time, the main character was sitting near the entrance to the Huna and meditated under a waterfall. The guy spent 3 years on a task for system activation and, behold, the treasured icon appeared in front of them. The appeared interface congratulated the owner on the long-awaited restoration of the supreme bone. The system also reported that the main character gained a skill, under called immortality, and 3 years of suffering have not passed down the drain. But the guy was not happy for long. In a second the system reported that the rewards space is closed, and also that the system stops working, and the owner will have to force delete. Jianyu wanted to impede this process, but did not. Managed, and in a moment there was an explosion. The guy was thrown somewhere into the forest, and he did not understand what happening. The protagonist explained that martial arts are divided into 9 kingdoms, and each kingdom is divided into 3 parts. And the difference between each kingdom is like the difference between heaven and earth. And Jianyu was now at the bottom of the 3rd kingdom. Then the main character decided to check something, and he took out a sword that was spiritual level. Before this weapon, even the owners of the 5th kingdom are powerless. Then the protagonist brought the sword to his throat, and decided to test his immortality. Jianyu dropped his sword to the ground, and grabbed his bleeding neck. Then his eyes turned pale, and he began to lose consciousness, and then fell into a pool of his own blood. But after about a minute, something started to happen. Strange, the blood seemed to come to life, and began to be drawn into wound. After that, she herself overgrown early on the neck so that there was not a trace. And in a moment the guy woke up, and grabbed his head, trying to process what just happened. After these events, the main characters felt an incredible feeling of breakthrough, and then energy began to fly around him. As a result, he came to the realization that most likely he becomes stronger with each death. At the same time, in the audience hall of the Hongler sect, felt this burst of energy. And then her head immediately instructed to find a student that he could awaken that energy, 'cause they're going to teach genius. In the woods, a bird watches the guy try to die already. For about an hour. The main character noticed that he is becoming strong. This is a little tiring, and during this time he managed to die about 1,000 times. He performed these actions with the help of a system that embodied in the form of a cloud with a divine sword. Jianyu noted that for some reason, progress is being made enough slowly, and he only managed to enter the realm of the 5 elements. He gets 1 point every time he dies, which means that to advance he needs to die about 10.000 more. Once, the system had a good attitude. She said that's all. Only 10,000 and she is ready to help the guy. This did not please him very much, and he said that such at a pace she will get hooked on the murders of the protagonist. Jianyu said that he did not want to pass again through all this nonsense, and he plans to master the way. Cultivation. Well, here the main character was waiting for disappointment, activation. This method also requires 1,000 experience points. At this time, people sent to the forest were already running. Find a gifted student. Some guy pointed out that the presence of a gifted. For some reason, the student disappears, then reappears once a few seconds. They start arguing about what it could be. Some powerful entity. Then they ran to the clearing where the main character stood, and was already counting down his 999th stroke. The girl was very surprised to see her. Jianyu's brother. But the guy was so happy that this was his last blow. Did not even notice the arrival of strangers. The girl thought that his brother decided to commit terrible and she rushed to save him. She grabbed his hands and did not let him make the last hit. He was very surprised to see her here, and the girl asked, "Why is he doing such a stupid thing?" She then mentioned that she knows how their father hurt him for 3 years back. He said that it would be hard to explain everything, but nothing like that. Did not want to do. After that, the girl realized that the man who revived his bone and whose aura was discovered is he. At this time, two elders were sitting in the main hall of the temple. One of them said that he was very happy for Master Leah, who was sitting nearby, as he has another talented student. Li, in turn, also began to praise the land of his interlocutor, say that the greatest talents are exactly there. His interlocutor replied that on his land the supreme bone. That's great rarity. Then he added that this time he didn't just come. Look at the talent. His great land is ready to accept new student. Lei was surprised, because just 3 years ago he had already given them one supreme bone belonging to the main character. But then the messenger began to press with authority, and say that their sect is just hats compared to holy ground. And then he added that he should not teach the great masters of Tench how to be an obedient dog, because he himself is knows. And in response, the master immediately began to apologize. But in the end, the messenger told everything that Master Lin. Nothing to worry about, and he just needs to be well served. Great Earth. Their conversation was interrupted by a soldier who said that the elder sister had found a person who awakened the power. The master immediately said to call him here immediately. The main character enters the hall with confident steps, saying that they have not seen each other for a long time. And then he calls the line master who once ripped out his bone by his teacher. Lin yelled at Jianyu to leave immediately. After all, there is no place for such disabled people as he is. But the protagonist just started to taunt this, and asked why he wanted to see him so quickly. And then he activated his power, and asked while in, was so. Face quickly changed. The master was shocked to see the last stage of the 5 elements, because once he gave the guy incapacitated. The protagonist rejoices because of the moral victory over his former offender, which greatly frightens the master. He realized that if the Holy Land takes the guy now, then one day he will definitely decide to take revenge on him for everything he has done. Then he completely lost his head, and said that it would be better if he strangled the guy in the cradle. After which, he activated the hidden rank magic, and directed on the main character. It was an attack aimed at destroying the target, and it crushed everything in its path. The messenger was simply shocked by what he saw. And Lin immediately began to make excuses that for a moment lost his temper. A man from the Great Land said that for this the masters will face severe punishment. At this time, somewhere in a cloud of smoke and dust, an icon lit up, which the protagonist immediately approved. He acquired the divine technique of the Buddha, the essence of which lies in the fact that it burns the life force but incredibly empowers the user. This allowed the guy, literally, to go beyond his kingdom, not considering that for every death there will be more. Intensify more. Standing in the room just fell out, especially Tench. He didn't. I understood how. With all my might, I could not kill the child. At this time, the guy already caught fire from the amount of energy. The master did not wait for the actions of the enemy, and rushed into attack. He tried to hit Jianyu, but it didn't work. The guy just ducked. He then attempted to attack with a finger that pierces the sky. The guy decided not to evade, but the master only more scared. And then, when he did not deal any damage, his hand also caught fire due to contact with the main character. After that, the guy decided that it was his turn. Attack. And he hit the first blow right in the face of his old teachers. Having defeated the enemy, the guy began to rejoice. He said that the teacher will not be able to harm even the head's hair. Hero. His monologue, with his claps, was interrupted by the envoy. He declared that he needs such talents in the Western field. Jianyu did not understand what kind of person was standing in front of him, and what does he care about his personal accounts with Tench? But the guy noticed that the cultivation level of this, a man taller than the master, he asked where he was from. The defeated teacher broke into the conversation. He said to the guy to show respect, otherwise he will be erased in powder. Lin also mentioned the sacred land of Lin, Zhao, and this also very alarmed the guy. After that, the message threw the guy some kind of gold brooch and said he had nothing to fear. His part of this realm has always appreciated such talents and wants accept a new student. The main character should think very carefully about accession because it has very great prospects. For some reason, the guy feels a sense of déjà vu when he hears about this Western field. The messenger in response to this said that now the guys just agree to the training and he will be ready for any conditions. Hearing the part about any conditions, the guy cunningly grinned. He said his terms would be the life of an elder's son. Holy Land. From such a messenger already turned pale. And he said it's one of the few things he can't propose to a guy. And he must choose something else. But he just waved his hand and said that his other conditions. Not interested. The envoy got angry. He reminded that the failed talent is nothing compared even to a cockroach, and a guy is better. Agree well. Jianyu noticed that some threats and therefore he decided to finally interrupt all talks about it. The messenger asked the guy, is he really looking for death? Hearing this, the protagonist got excited. He confirmed words of the man and challenged him to a duel. He did not wait long and decided to show the guy all the genius of the techniques of the Holy Land. The messenger used a technique against the opponent. Instant destruction. Lin was just shocked to see her, after such a guy could not survive in any way in his opinion. An explosion thundered from the incredible power in the street. But then the guy woke up, and an icon had already appeared in front of him, reporting that he received 108 experience points. Seeing such a figure, and realizing that he died 108 times, in a second, he was incredibly happy with such a pharmaceutics. At this time, the Ling Master began to praise martial skills. Representative of the sacred land, he was modest and said that once the Supreme, the Elder used this technique against tens of thousands demonic spirits. But their bread conversation was interrupted by laughter from the side. The main character, safe and sound, even from his shabby clothes, approached them. The messenger was shocked to see the protagonist unharmed. He is sure that he hit his target with his technique. Jianyu began dusting off his clothes, and said that the technique turned out to be rather weak. Then he began to provoke the messenger, and said that he should try a few more times. The envoy was incredibly wary. There is no way. Impossible to win. He asked himself what kind of physique woke up with a guy. Actually the elder of the sacred field, just looking for a worthy body to move in and continue war. At the end of this, the messenger said that the guy impress him and he will give him 3 more days to think. Jianyu began to make a fool of himself. He said that he would never surrender and rather die, so let the messenger once more hit him. Well, the man did not succumb to provocations and repeated his phrase about 3 days. He then turned to Master Lin and told him to take care of the child, otherwise he will have problems. The main character was upset and asked again if he doesn't want to fight anymore. After that, he blocked the old man's exit and said that joked, and if the messenger hit him a few more times, then the guy immediately gives up. This finally finished off the man from the Holy Land, and he just once finished off the main character. And he, in turn, when he woke up, was just crazy. Happiness and thanked the altruist for 468 experiences. Then, Near the martial arts gate, the Shanwa began to gather. People. People came to see Master Lin, who was completely served Jianyu. At some point, grandfather got tired of it all, and he sent boy far away. But he, in response, only cynically began to manipulate his self-destruction in front of the teacher. Well, when he brought the knife to his throat, the master immediately rushed to dissuade him. Out of surprise, he grabbed the knife with his own hand, which got injured. The master simply cannot imagine that at the end of his life, he must humiliate himself in front of some blockhead. But he has to, and he again switches to a soft tone, telling the guy that he should forgive the mistakes of the stupid people. One of the guys standing in the crowd did not understand what it was a jerk about which the master should bow. The girl told him that it was the most powerful a person in the Hanwha sect at the moment. Then our main character. The guard said that outsiders are not allowed to enter here. People. After that, Jianyu pulled out a knife and calmly put it to neck, as if giving an ultimatum to the interlocutor. After that, an elder came out of the temple and said to Jianyu was immediately let in. The protagonist bowed before the elder and said that he still looks great. To this, we replied that the guy had changed more, and now talks in vain, but he has heard a lot about his status. The elder added that Jianyu left his soul ability to forgive people, especially when it comes to master. After that, he handed the guy a key and said that he obviously not here to chat. When the guy turned around, the man wondered what it was. The last thing he can do is hope the guy doesn't disgrace the will of his father. When the main character was inside, he noticed that the holy ground seems to help Master Lin a lot. Since his last visit here, the number of books significantly increased even on the ground floor. But by the way, people shied away from Jianyu when he passed them. The guy explained that on the continent, all the strongest levels, technician, apart from one, require the achievement of the realm 5 elements. The first floor of the Canaan vault contains only the weakest technique, and they are not very good for the main character. Interesting. He decided to go straight to the second floor, but to his surprise, the road was blocked by some kind of barrier with a painted rune. The guy said that before this was not here, and he decided just push this thing forward. As soon as he touched her, it was I who began to work out some fiery energy, and then Jianyu flew a few meters back from the explosive waves. At that moment, the first student was just passing by him. Sect, he laughed at the main character and said that he did not open the door with brute force. He said that in order to enter the second floor of the vault, 10 lethal rank techniques must be cultivated. The main characters are already on fire with anger that some pathetic 10 techniques separate it from knowledge. Then he called the system in the air to help him. He grabbed this blue lump and began to ask if a way to quickly learn 10 lethal rank techniques. The system did not believe in the task of the protagonist. Because of this he did not threw it out and called it trash. The blue ball turned around in the air and clarified that he was not said it was impossible. He only asked why. The main character is hearing that it was possible. The guy screamed that it didn't matter and let the system help him faster. It was said that all he had to do was put hand on a book with a secret technique and absorb its knowledge. After that, the system disappeared and asked no more. Disturb her over such trifles. The guy took some random book and put it on it. Hand. An icon has appeared asking if the main character wants to learn the wild tiger fist skill. He agreed, after which he lost 1 point of experience, and the skill has been absorbed. Jianyu decided to check the result, and indeed, I felt the power of the tiger in my fist. After that, the guy began to rejoice and thank the system. And after a while, the main character again stood. After entering the second floor, people behind him whispered that this dunce must have again decides to use brute force and expose himself to ridicule. But, to everyone's surprise, when he touched the barrier, something started happening. Incredibly bright light illuminated the entire room, and then the passage opened. The people standing behind him immediately fell to their knees and became ask him to explain to them how the guy was able to learn 10 techniques so fast. To this the protagonist replied with maximum vagueness often. That strong explanations are not needed. But people mistook this nonsense for some great wisdom, and were impressed by his power. On the second floor of the temple stood the sister of the protagonist surrounded by multicolored spheres in which techniques are stored. The girl once again tries to master the technique, True Fire, but fails again. The purple orb does not react to her attempts at all. Suddenly her loneliness is interrupted by the voice of some people behind. The man said that it's just a fire technique, and it's ready. Help her learn. Hearing this, the girl rejected the ego proposal and simply gone. This made the man very angry. He called her ungrateful. He began to tell how he wanted her one day to become his, but this epitaph was interrupted by the sound of the front door. He could not understand where this noise came from, because it was just. It is impossible for someone to open the doors to the second floor. As soon as he saw the main character, he immediately asked how he got here. But the main character only answered, why would he not come here? Get in, with his then talent. Zuhan immediately cried out that the guy must have somehow cheated, because it took him 3 whole years. In response, Jianyu grimaced and said that apparently some mediocre people can't tell the difference between himself and the genius. This angered all the people inside, and they asked, quickly tell how he got here. But the guy reassured the interlocutor. He said that he was not talking about him, but about everyone standing in this hall except him. This made people so angry that they decided to fight the main character. But this only made the main character happy, because this is another opportunity to practice your skills. Then, he immediately used several techniques in a row, and dealt with all 3 attackers. Standing unscathed guy said they started it themselves. Fight and resorted to aggression. But in the process of how he continued to count them, the main character was distracted by a voice from the side. His sister noticed Jianyu, and was very happy that he here. The main character was also glad to see her here. Then, the girl came closer and asked what was there anyway happening. The guy explained that he had just sparred with students of the sect, but unfortunately every year the students worse and worse. Deja confirmed the part about student deterioration, and added that some even tactless like to pester girls. After that, these two just moved on, left a group of students behind. All the events that happened sowed the seeds together in the soul. Zuhan and he said that he would definitely break main character. This time the girl and the protagonist were standing in room with a bunch of colorful balls which sealed technology. The guy asked D again, is everything on the second floor? Techniques sealed in barriers. Hearing this, the girl was surprised. She asked her brother, is he here for the first time? She explained that the technicians were stored on the second floor. Highest spiritual rank. And yet, it turned out that from that moment on, almost every technology has its own consciousness, and it is enough to show his aura around her. The main character was delighted to understand this, and decided to try. Show your aura. In a moment, whirlwinds flew from the guy. Various red energies. Even the girl did not expect that each flask in the room will crack from the power of the protagonist. After that, the barriers of all techniques collapsed, and the scrolls flew straight to Jianyu. The guys from the previous room came running to this noise. They mistook what was happening for an earth coward. Then, straight from Julin's soul, one of techniques captured by the hero. It turned out to be one of his martial arts, so he rushed to catch him. But he failed. He missed and fell face down on earth. At the same time, the main character was standing in the middle of the room and surrounded by colorful scrolls. The girl was in complete shock, realizing that the main character caused all ranked to scrolls to break through their barriers. The main character himself did not expect that he could collect such number of different techniques. It even seemed to him that this was protection in the temple, on the second floor, nothing more than a mere formality. The girl noticed that the technique that the guy is holding, called the Source of Fire. Jian assumed that the girl wanted this scroll, and so I gave it to her as a gift. Day was very grateful. The protagonist stood and examined each technique. I hoped to find among the heaps of rubbish at least one secret rank. And then before him appeared one such, called hand catching dragons. Julin, who was standing nearby, shouted to the guy to remove from her his dirty hands, because this is his technique. The guy asked why she was scared of him. She is not wearing no signature or anything like that. The girl joined the conversation and said that the techniques of the second floors belong only to those who can afford them, and he, just a brawler. He called out that this was not the case, and that this particular technique of his teacher bequeathed to him by inheritance. The girl wanted to continue the argument, but the main character did not hurt to talk to that person. The guy said that if Jilin really needs this technique, then let him try to take it by force, otherwise let him just fail from the path of the main character. His opponent, very angry, he said that he did not think how in theory someone could force him to do it, but for now, it's time. He took out some glowing orange pill. When you were his teacher handed it to him, and said that she will allow him to go outside the realm for a short time. Therefore it is very valuable. This is an extreme situation for Jilin, so he immediately swallowed. Then, his eyes became bloodshot and he began to drain blue energy, so powerful that it broke through the floor under him. The protagonist called the actions of his opponent naive. After all, no pill will bring him closer to the power of the main hero. But he replied that he had gained incredible power, and let the main character will laugh now, because soon he will not can do it. The girl told Jilin that now his strength equivalent to the middle of the true realm, and he went mad. The guy said that he would let the opponent hit him 3 attacks so that the elder does not tell the but just offends the weak. Julin prepared to attack the protagonist, and shouted to him to stop being rude, at least before death. The opponent used the power of lightning to attack, and instantly tried to stab Jian. The girl did not even have time to shout the guy to leave, because immediately there was a fiery explosion, and in its center stood the unharmed protagonist. The technique, the enemy could not even hurt him, and Jian just started counting the attacks that remained with the enemy. But Julin did not even let him agree. He immediately delivered a second blow, this time to the protagonist's neck. It didn't work either, and the guy said that this is the second attack of the opponent out of 3. After this, even the narcissistic Julin began worry about what is about to happen. But he did not stop and made one last attempt. Strike from a jump, using the technique of the law of pure sky. He hit the main character on the head. It even flew a few drops of blood, and he already thought that victory close. But the guy just smiled and said that now his cue. He activated the scroll and decided to use the technique called hand-handling dragons. With one blow, he threw the enemy air with the help of fire. And then, a huge demonic hand appeared above the man, controlled by the protagonist. Julin realized his mistake. He began to beg the guy about for mercy, saying that he was wrong. But the main character is not interested. He said that the tiger attacks to the end. After that, all the damage fell on the unfortunate Julin, and in a moment he was already lying in a smoldering crater. The girl was a little scared by what she saw. She said that the main character crippled the beloved student of the higher elders. Well, then he coldly replied that he didn't care about the remote control either. Cultivation, survival of the fittest, and these elders when you did the same with the guy. After these events, the main character turned around and left. Said that all the remaining technicians on the second floor for die. And the girl was in shock. She did not understand what was happening. Happened to the guy over these 3 years, and why is he so? Has changed. And he, in turn, went on to himself, I think that in principle, he probably looked good in this battle. After walking a little more, he got to the third floor of the vault. Cons of the Buddha, noting at the same time that earlier they could get only the best of the best. Hanging around the post were at least 8 arcane techniques. Rank. And the flutter in this turtle most likely was something even more helpful than this. Who would have thought that as soon as the hero looks at this statue, on the spot where he had just stood, an explosion will thunder. But the main character managed to jump and in flight, he decided. Grab the scroll from the turtle's teeth. But she, in turn, was clearly not happy about this, and she immediately activated. You couldn't even touch the statue because this. At the same moment, some kind of barrier activated around her. He noticed that it really already looks like a test, and then he decided to break through the defenses, catching dragons with his hand. And at that very moment, his magical hand was perforated by some blue energy. Not just perforated, this beam was sent straight through on the main character standing below. He did not have time to dodge from such power around him even. The earth cracked. But the main character received his unit of experience for the fact that just died. After these events, an image appeared right above the statues. One of the elders who asked who dared touch this knowledge. And Yu noticed that this person's aura is just incredible. She is stronger even than the messenger from the holy earth. The spirit immediately realized that the boy had the power of the kingdom of 5 elements, but with such a force it is impossible to get here. But the spirit, also, immediately saw in the guy a descendant of his ancient sects. And so he decided to use the technique and read protagonist's intention. The main character was powerless before such a force. The spirit immediately read all of Yu's memories and thoughts, and noted that all this is very interesting for him. The main character tensed up. The main problem is that the elder does not have to figure out the secrets of his immortal body. But he said that the guy has such secrets that even are not subject to him. Then, the elder brought the remaining 8 techniques to the main character and said that he was free to study them. To his surprise, the guy turned out to be dissatisfied. He was not interested in these miserable secret rank techniques. He needs what that the elder protects. But the elder said that with the boy's current level of cultivation, even if he gets this scroll, he won't be able to master the technique. He added that the true Xianwu scripture was created a certain deity, and in order to study it, you must first go out to nirvana. The elder said that only the master of the immortal kingdoms can master this power, but the youth is simply destroyed by her power. The main character is not interested. He says what he needs: become stronger to resist the people from the Holy Land. After that, the elder finally realized that the young man was not retreat before difficulties without biting off bitterness. After that, some blue energy erupted from the ground, which began to wind up the main character. And in a few moments the guy was completely chained and unable to move. Grandfather replied that since the young man so much wants to learn true Xianwu scripture, he will check it now. Then he added that he gave the guy a chance, and this energy is his thread of true key, and the guy must twist it in order to pass the test. After that, hellish pain like an electric shock pierced the entire body of the young man. The guy noticed that this true key destroys him meridians from within, and he can't take it anymore. And then he was credited with 1 unit of experience. Further, the main character with all his might let out all his accumulated power, and somehow, barely, he could get free. The electric shock passed, and even the elder was surprised. Visible. This time, the guy was already all wounded from the past skirmishes, but still stood on his feet. He remarked that it was just a terrible technique, and if he didn't have immortality, he would most likely be dead by now. Grandfather realized that the kid somehow still managed resist and he has a chance to learn the true writing. Then he soared into the air, and the turtle shot at the protagonist to lasers. In just a moment, the protagonist found himself in some strange space. Before him was the spirit of the elder, and told the main character to panic, because this is his grotto of immortality. Jane, you remembered that people having their own the grotto of immortality could literally be on the fingers count. Then the wise man said he didn't expect to see his heir to some boy with the kingdom of 5 elements. And the guy folded it in his hands as a sign of respect, and asked, "Who is the elder?" He said that his name is Lin Tian, the greatest descendant of the sect Xianwu, and in fact, he is its founder. The protagonist, when asked, it seems strange to him that has such power to the old man allows his sect to be henchman of the Holy Land. He replied that the kid is stupid, because the sage is already long dead. He said that 200 years ago, at the peak of his weakness on, he was attacked by 4 higher beings, and were able to destroy his body. And it so happened that after his death the clan had no the mighty of this world, and he was left to fend for himself. Then the elder said that since the guy is a member of a sect and the true scripture approved of him, then he give him that power. The guy replied that he was honorably ready to fulfill the mission entrusted to him, a comma in the form of a revival. Former strength of the clan. The old man was delighted to hear this, and decided to teach the guy true Xian with scripture. This writing is not so much a technique as a method. Perfection of the body. Shorn in his life was able to go to the 8th degree out of 12 in this scripture. The wise man said that he would give the guys all 12 levels, and he hopes that someday he will surpass him. The memory that was put into the head of the protagonist during training will allow him to be on an equal footing with the best of this piece. When it was over, the main character said that even now does not feel how powerful this technique is, it comparable even to his immortality. The elder said that he was not mistaken, the main character is very was quickly able to enter the first layer of true Xianwu scripture. Then he said he wanted to see how the hero deeply learned the given settings, whereupon the old man charged his hand with energy, and tried attack by telling the guy to watch his movements. The guy agreed and they touched with their attacks, creating an explosive wave. The old man said it was not bad, and told them to repeat it again. They exchanged blows for the second time. Then a few more repetitions. Blue and red glow merged with each other in a fierce battle. At some point, the guy was able to inflict damage on an opponent, from which the elder even vomited blood. Jian Yu even got scared for what he had just done, and ran to help the elder. But he began to refuse. He is just a remnant. Souls therefore still have 1 foot in the grave. He said that he was ready to die knowing that he had such beautiful air as Jian Yu. He began to dissolve in the air, and from now on, according to him, he is the leader of this sect, and everyone in it must obey him. After which he completely disappeared into this space in his arms at the main character. And then the guy reappeared in the real world, on the very place. An icon appeared in front of him congratulating him on gaining a new level and the fact that he received 100.000 experience. But what he saw did not make him very happy, and he immediately began call the system. She again appeared in the form of a blue cloud, and said that he didn't scream so much. And the guy didn't even let him talk. He grabbed a blue lump and poked him into the menu that opened, after which he forced everything. Explain. The system itself is at a loss where the main character has so many experience. She asked if the guy was having fun with self-destruction. He was just furious. He asked why he hadn't reported that there is a leveling system for defeating opponents. Then the cloud fussily began to check the list of functions without understanding what is happening. But it turned out that it was the system said if the main character did not ask her, then she herself would forget what to eat. Such a function The blue cloud said that it was time for him, but the main character did not give him get away, and grabbed. And then he asked how many more hidden features are there. The fraudulent system hides from him. He started shaking the blue ball and yelling at him, if he now he doesn't explain everything, then the guy will stop feeding him rice. From such torture, the system had no choice but to agree to tell the main character everything. She said that it is, you can really get experience by destroying opponents, but the amount of experience depends from the opponent's strength. She also added that there are millions of little things, such as, for example, if you defeat the opponent higher level, the experience will increase by 10 times. She also said that with experience, you can improve technique and gave the protagonist an interface too. Understood everything. The system prompted the guy that if he wants every time destroying the enemy to increase the level, then we should study new techniques. And then, the blue cloud asked the main character, after all this he can let him go home. And then it vanished into thin air. Jianyu decides to level up after all help of experience, to the realm of true mastery. When he carried out all these machinations, he immediately felt incredible surge of power. At the same time, in the secret Taoyi sect, something was going on. Robbers raged in the village, defeating everyone on their own way. With the help of their power, the robbers were able to defeat even sect elder. Then, one of the bandits hit the old man, and said that he level is highly useless to counter Western field. The elder fell to his knees, and began to beg for mercy. He said that he would break with the past, and give all his strength. East field. After that, one of the bandits asked how the old man can be helpful to them. He replied that he could create immortal pills kingdoms to strengthen them. It is only necessary that the guy let him go. But the elder did not have time to finish. The robber finished off him with one blow. Then said the pathetic immortal realm is just insects for him. After that, the girl who was held by one of the villains escaped and ran to the master. She said that sooner or later, these two will pay for everything, and will go to hell. Then the robber replied that his brother at the moment has the status of an immortal, and no one can harm. The bald guy asked what they should do with this woman. Surprisingly, the leader allowed her to let go. He said that sees potential in her and someday she will become a stepping stone for him. Then, the robber shouted to her to leave, and perhaps once returned to take revenge on both of them. She wiped away her tears and looked at them to remember better. And then, in an instant, she fled the battlefield. After that, the leader said that they have just destroyed another sect and he doesn't know where they should go. After a few seconds, something caught their attention and the guy caught something in the air. It turned out to be a bird with a message tied to its paw. The message was about finding a new body for relocation named Jianyu, so the robbers now their master does not need. The robber said that all this looks very interesting, and someone clearly wants to get in his way. Then, he addressed the second robber as the eighth, and said they need to find someone named Jianyu. At the same time, our main character also left the temple Kanenas of the Buddha. He called Elder Shinwu, who was standing after the entrance. And he, in turn, immediately noticed changes in the aura. Boys. And after a few seconds, he dropped to one knee and said that a subordinate came to visit the young master. The guy absolutely did not understand what was happening now, and what this grandfather is carrying. The elder explained that now the protagonist has such an aura, same as the former master of their clan, because he mastered true Qianwu scripture. It turns out the Shangwu elder also knows the secret of the third floors, and the protagonist immediately asked him to stand up. As soon as he got up, he asked, the boy, for sure, saw the previous master and knows how he is doing now. The guy replied that the elder from the temple, unfortunately, died. The protagonist grabbed the Shenwu by the shoulder, and told him to. I didn't grieve much, because the main character will avenge the master. And then he added that the days of the dictatorship on the four great lands will not last long. But the master replied that if the guy wants to take revenge, then everything must be carefully thought out, otherwise there will be a war. Inevitable. Jianyu replied that everything was fine, but unfortunately he knows too little of the four great lands for the present moment. The elder said that of the four great lands, the eastern land of Linzhou is the most powerful. Also, as far as he knows, in all the great lands there are at least two powerful masters who control territory. Even the protagonist did not expect that the four great lands so powerful. It's no wonder the old man once fell. But then he smiled slyly, because he has an immortal the body, and the four great lands will not be able to do anything to him. Oppose. Elder continue. The reason why the four great the earth is so confident and self-confident, that's what they monopolized cultivation. And the slightest act of non-subordination, or rebellion of any kind, sect, immediately led to its destruction. And the past master of the Xianwu land always opposed such a system of power, and therefore it was removed. And they all, including the elder himself, and the master of the chief, the hero is under the control of the great land. The guy noticed that, apparently, the four great the lands took on the role of the usual villain. And then the guy asked the elder where he was now. His master. He replied that he was sent to prison, a restricted area. Sects for the fact that when he defended the main character for 3 years back, the elder explained that the main character should not hate their head so much, he just plays by the rules. Holy Land. But now that the protagonist has mastered the true scripture, he stopped being too afraid of the Holy Land. He said that the mark he put on the main character will force him to obey him as the head of the sect. And this mark will allow the main character to free his prison masters. But the elder added that now the main character should master the true description at least to the 7th level. The main character said not to worry, because the guy going to keep in the shade. But in fact, the guy cultivate at all going. He has another way. He just needs to defeat a few masters, or elders from the Holy Land, for experience. At the same time, in the main hall of the sect once lay wounded, and the main character is a guy. His master asked who could hurt him like that, and he answered that it was Jianyu. Then the old man said that he was ready to tear the main character to pieces for it. He took out a sacred pill and told the wounded man that it heal all his wounds, so he must quickly accept. What was his surprise when the pill disappeared from him with hands. At that moment, the main character entered the hall and said that he didn't. It is worth spending such a valuable medicine on such an invalid. After which, the guy called the great elder too selfish. The same one was just furious when he saw the main character in this hall. But the guy was still flattered, because the elder before still remembered his name. The elder said that the protagonist not only dared hurt his disciple, he still came and destroyed the medicine. Does the protagonist want the elder to be his destroyed? Then he prepared to attack, and said that today will put things in order. But the main character was ready to fight. He said that today the perfect day to settle old and new grievances. They were already ready to tear each other apart, when between them became another elder. The grandfather asked why the mentor had stopped them. He replied that nevertheless they were given an assignment from the great land to protect the main character. But the elder said he didn't have to worry. In fact he instructed new instructions from the Holy Land. And the new direction is to make them as faster, destroyed the main character. When the master asked if this was serious, he replied that it was for the safety of the sect, so he would not lie. Then even the mentor was delighted. He said that now he no need to put up with this arrogant boy. But the guy was glad to see it. They are preparing to attack him, just like 3 years ago. Then he said that they should think carefully, because if he strikes, they will not die from one. The mentor is very tense. He knows that the main character is not As simple as it seems. So he told the elder to behave carefully. But the old man replied that there was nothing to be afraid of. For all these years he was able to reach the beginning of the immortal realm. He started to generate energy around you, and said that the boy from the realm of the five elements is not worthy of him. The protagonist noticed that at least the oldest twice stronger than Linzu, but he is still weaker than that messenger from the Holy Land. Then he shouted in rage that he would allow the protagonist feel all your power. He held up a sphere of some violet energy in his hand, and told the main character to get ready to die. A beam of incredible energy pierced the air of the room, destroying everything in its path. But the main characters decided not to evade on purpose, so that check your body. He wonders if he can stand up to a human. Realms above true mastery. After that, the energy passed through him, and also flashed temple door and flew out. As soon as the smoke began to slowly unstick, it turned out that the protagonist stood in the middle unharmed. Both elders were simply shocked by what they saw. The protagonist expected that at least once he would die, but this, even if the skin did not burst, it's all thanks to the true writing. Then he seemed to ask, didn't the elder want to show the guy a power that surpasses the realm of the true skill? The elder realized that this was impossible. Even people and holy grounds cannot resist such techniques. He continued to attack and said that he had already overcome realm of true craftsmanship. So why is he not able to harm the Yunsu with the kingdom? Five elements. At the moment, Jane Yu's former mentor slowly began to realize what was happening now. He noticed some changes in the protagonist's aura. Then the guy got tired, and he said that the elder would be careful, kind, and the main character will now attack. He said that one would be enough for him to win techniques, and he created the image of a ghostly tiger in the air. At this time, the protagonist's former mentor wanted to crawl away from being attacked. But a second later, an elder ran up to him. He said that there is nothing personal here, and someday, he will take revenge for him. After that, he closed himself from the attack of the protagonist. And then, after a moment, the main character was in front of them, ready to destroy them. And then he hit the wrong person suddenly. And in the direction of his attack, the ground actually opened up from a chain of hellish explosions. And in a second, two unconscious people appeared in front of him. Body. And then, two icons also appeared, indicating that the main character gained experience. The guy was very happy that he could win with one blow, and he couldn't believe he was that strong. Surprisingly, the mentor survived this attack. He was just in shocked. The guy literally destroyed Great Elder. It turns out that he was not mistaken, and the main character really learned the true description of Xianwu. After that, the guy cynically said that his mentor would next. He already fell from fear, and began to pray to the protagonist. Come to your senses, after all, he is the mentor of the great sect. The man began to yell that if the main character of his kills the Holy Land will not spare them. But the guy was just in ecstasy from his power. He waved a fiery train in front of the mentor's face, and asked if he thought he could still give orders. He survived the attack. The main character only made him a scar on the cheek. And the old man began to beg. He said that if the main character wants to disgrace him, let him kill himself. But the guy said that he was not going to do anything like that. He has no bad habit of destroying everyone who does not like. Jianyu said that he would spare him only because he an elder stream and Dai's father. He said that these two were very kind to him, and therefore they deserve a lot of human grace. The old man was frightened, and asked if the main character really was able to meet their ancestor. The guy replied that the elder surely owes everything. Good to know that he met with the master, and practiced writing. He asked what's up. The main character is just trying ridicule a man for being completely blind. Then the man said that he never regretted that destroyed the main character because he could not realize What is his responsibility? The protagonist threw away his opponent and said that he, not so superficial. He said that he was not going to kill the enemy, only for the past, and he is ready to spare a man if he obey him. He started yelling that Jianyu had enough position to force him to obey. In response to this, the boy quickly grabbed the mark given to him. Elder. The man immediately realized that this was a decree from him, and asked how he turned out to be with him. The guy explained that this decree is like seeing the lord of the sect, and he asked the man to stand on, kneel in front of him. And then, the man bowed before him, and said he respected young master. After some time, the main character with his subordinates arrived in the Grotto of Immortality Shanwu. The master explained that they had come to a restricted area where imprisoned Jian Elder. Jianyu noticed that this cave is really powerful, its barriers, most likely even he will not be able to break through. The man explained that this space develops from the second Grotto of Immortality, and it opens once every 10 years. The protagonist remembered that the true scripture was about the fact that if it's development to the 6th level, then you can open the Grotto of Immortality in your body. The protagonist asked again how it happened that his master was in this cave for only 3 years. Is the old man really deceiving him? The bottom line is that as long as you have the Shanhua seal, then you can enter and exit the grotto without question. All you have to do is put the decree in a special recess in the wall of the grotto. The protagonist realized what he heard and immediately did it. The print was absorbed by the wall and began to stand out. Huge amount of energy. Tongues of flame literally burned the main character, while have not completely disappeared. And then, to everyone's surprise, aptly, the main character, placed inside, disappeared without a trace. The main character was inside the great immortal grotto. Xian Wu. The guy immediately noticed that his teacher was right, and the mark allows you to enter and exit the grotto freely. The protagonist noticed one entity, Elder Lin, has long died, but it still seems to him that the grotto is under someone's control. Jianyu explained that from the moment he entered the grotto, he felt that some powerful creature was watching him. Then at some distance near the protagonist air began to form a funnel. The guy is doing badly. He says that he can feel the aura of this person and it is at least in the kingdom of the monastery. Maybe even someone from the Holy Land. In the next second, the funnel began rapidly expand and tighten the main character. Jianyu says that the power is terrifying and even he, opposing the power of the realm of the immortals, cannot resist. After that, the foot of the protagonist still stopped touching earth. And he began to tighten up. The guy even thought it was end. The guy was completely absorbed by this power, but for a few moments he opened his eyes. He found himself in a similar space he was in Canaan Temple, but now a girl was sitting in front of him. She asked the guy if he woke up. The protagonist was delighted to see her. He called her a master and asked if this powerful aura really belonged to her. The girl said that they had not seen each other for 3 years, and the protagonist remained the same hurried. Then she snapped her fingers, and before them appeared a small table with the accessories. She told the main character to drink water first, and then she will explain to him everything concerning his questions. The protagonist thought, the creation of emptiness is the minimum. The technique of the rank of the realm of the abode, and it is already subject to his master. Then the girl said that she knew how much the guy has accumulated questions. Give her a lot of things she wanted. Ask him, for these 3 years. She said that she had just studied his macaw, and remarked how much the main character became stronger, as if another human. He said that during this time, in addition to the fact that he had lose the supreme bone, he also learned the true Shan Wu scripture, and became the chief heir of the clan. The girl understood, that's why the main character is in realm of the 5 elements has such an aura, and smog. Go to this place. The first one just asked a question. He asked like a girl. was able to break through the kingdom of the monastery, if 3 years was cut off from the outside world, and unable to cultivate. She began to tell this long and difficult story. About 3 years ago she was imprisoned here, because she insulted a Fang elder, which affected her reputation. The entire sect. Then, she already thought that her end would come here, but she revealed the secret of this school. It turned out that even though he isolated, but does not block external influences, and can be changed from within. She tried to adjust the grotto to suit herself, but suddenly found out that in the darkness lurks an even more powerful creature that rivaled her. The power of this creature was rejected by the grotto, and this place allowed the girl to merge with him to break into the realm of the monastery. The girl agreed, but this powerful creature before still exists and wants to seize control of the grotto. Immortals. Jinyu was simply shocked to hear that there is someone in the world capable of penetrating the grottos of the immortals belonging other people. She said she had a place on that score, and most likely she knows who it is, namely the elder from the Supreme Saint. This information further stunned the protagonist. After all, it has long been rumored that this man with one foot in grave. The girl said that it was. This man was very badly wounded by the ancestor Lintian, and the terms of his life are greatly decreased. Well, that person had an innate talent. He made breakthroughs in moments of complete hopelessness, and if the body was not exhausted, it is likely that he could capture this grotto. In other words, the girl is trying to say that he already broke into the realm of the sage. But then, the protagonist noticed an inconsistency. If this man is already in the realm of the sage, and he has no similar on this earth, why does he need some insignificant grotto? The master replied that Zhuanwu Immortality Grotto is not so easy. What the guy thinks. Although Yin Poishan is already in the sage realm, he has not yet regained his strength. For this he needs two things. Since its source was badly damaged, this grotto interests him because he was created by a man who approached the realm of the sage. The second thing is that he needs another body for transmigration of his mighty soul. Only did these two things he is able to reveal the potential of the sage's realm. The protagonist attentively listened to every word, and then something clicked in his head. Yutian needs this grotto, and a physical body for resettlement. The protagonist immediately remembered the words of the messenger and the saint land, and he realized that they want to make him this body. The problem is that the main character is in grotto of the immortal Zhuanwu and thereby exposes himself incredible danger. The girl noticed that the main character immediately somehow turned pale and asked what happened, and he immediately told her. Explained that most likely the body for relocation is him, and there is. From surprise, the master hit the table. I refuse to is to believe. And then, for some reason, the table began to crack and the girl understood immediately. She asked herself how the ghoul could find it place. After that, the characters were attacked from somewhere. Heaven. It turned out to be some kind of demonic hand that tried grab the main character. And the girl immediately contacted the cave and asked her so that she would help drive the monster into a trap. Out of nowhere, chains formed, started roll up a monstrous tentacle. The monster opened its mouth and snakes began to crawl out. The girl ordered the chains to unravel, and in a moment, all of them, together with the monster, caught fire in hellish fire. And then, to everyone's surprise, behind the main characters, the silhouette of a man began to appear, turned to the girl, and asked how much she can spoil his good deeds. Seeing this man, the protagonist immediately realized what it was. Yun Poitian. The guy described his presence as unbelievable, powerful pressure, and said that the cultivation of this man is different from all beings that he has ever met earlier. The villain cast his glance at the protagonist and chuckled. He said that he never would have thought that in the Han was sect, and the truth will be a suitable body for him. Then the old man cried out, He said how much it was lucky that these two gathered in one place, and enough to destroy them to become dominant on the entire continent. The girl replied that it was naive, while they are in this cave, they can fight on equal terms. But now they are on her side. Is her best student. And he arrogantly decided to check her words, and he began attack with an instant kill technique. The master replied that any martial art in the cave Xuan Wu is useless. She used the power of the grotto of immortality and stopped every projectile flying in her direction. Then the Poichan said the girl got caught in the cave. Nothing can oppose her but her precious. The student is now the weak link. The girl immediately realized her mistake and tried to help the guy. But she was in no way in time, and the sage instantly approached the guy to grab him.